Many thanks for joining us on our election studio where Nigeria decides, and this time around we just had to listen to the president address the nation there, talking about some key points that have been made and how the conduct of the election should be held.
That's right, and we watched the State of the Nation address with our guests in the studio, and definitely we'll get to talk about that, talking about the high points, the things that the president mentioned about how much progress has been made and what essentially we should focus on during the forthcoming elections. Well, that will form the crux of the conversation during this segment on Nigeria Decides. At this point, we are joined by Ugochukwu Ikeakor, a political analyst, and Babasola Adegbuyi, YPP gubernatorial candidate in Ogun State. Thank you so much for joining us now.
Thank you.
You watched that address, and before we talk about the details and all of the things that he touched on, when you heard that the president was going to deliver an address, what was your reaction and the impression you got? Let me start with you, Ugochukwu.
I was a little bit indifferent. At that point, I was thinking that maybe the president is going to postpone the election. To be sincere, and the whole address this night was kind of surprising to me. All right, and I feel like it was more like a panic address to the nation. All right, bearing in mind that the president, if there's one thing he has done very well in this administration, that he has refused to speak to Nigerians over the last 4 years. You can count how many times that we had a State of Nation address to talk about the issues, the killings, or the issues around. So for him to just remember us today, I don't think I should celebrate it.
Babasola, were you impressed by the delivery of the president and the gesture, the tone of his delivery and communicating to the Nigerian?
Well, personally, I'm not impressed. The reason is, if you are coming out to give a nation address, you are not to come out and campaign. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a roundup of his campaign process before the general election that will be coming up on Saturday. The last time the national president addressed the nation was when he returned back from London to warn the Kanu of what he was doing during that Biafra agitation. That time. Since that time, the president has not actually come out.
But do you think this this State of the Nation comes at a time where it falls into the 48-hour deadline for having campaigns to have stopped?
Actually, the presidential campaign runs up today, so still falls within the 48 hours before the general election. So he has not, in one sense, he has not gone against the rule, but the other sense is that we expected something else. But how then do we now differentiate
this from being a State of the Nation address and a campaigning ground? Because it had some campaign undertones to it, don't you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. His campaign, as far as I'm concerned, he has not actually addressed. I even thought what he was coming to do was to tell us that now that we are about having our election on Saturday, everybody should be try as much as possible to be violence-free. Do not participate in unnecessary arguments.
Okay, now let's talk about the details. Now, first and foremost, one of the things that really struck me in his speech is talking about the peace accord signing. Now, yes, he penned his signature to that paper and say, well, I commit to ensuring that we are going to have free, fair, credible elections. We've also looked at that coming across. But by the end of the day, don't you think this is just a signature on paper? And at the end of the day, the APC will do what they know how to do best. The PDP would also do what they know how to do best. And other political parties also play the game of politicking.
Well, for me, I think to an extent, I think it's commendable. And also, it's a mockery, it's a contradiction. That's how I see it. It's commendable, and they say it looks like an irony to me, because APC over the last few days, we had key actors, principal actors in this current administration talk about Rotimi Chibika Mechi and the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, where he said that no interference, and for anybody that gets involved, will go back home in body bags. And some unprintable things that Rotimi Mechi said during the campaign in Rivers State, where the president was standing beside him. All right, I don't think that's the highest level of endorsement, having the general commander of the Federal Republic of Nigeria beside you, and you are saying things that are not supposed to be said. And this is the Rivers State that will know that, as far as Nigeria election is concerned, Rivers State is one of the volatile multi-state in this country, and for you to come there to say things that are unprintable, that are not nice, that will hit up the polity, is not good.
But then the president did say that all of those things that were said by state actors do not reflect the stance of the nation. He said that during the broadcast. I hope that you heard that. But then we also know, let me finish, we also know that before this speech came, after the statement by El Rufai, the body bag statement, the president said that he already explained why he said that and apologized. And then he said that statement was made in national interest. Now the president is saying that some of those things that were said do not reflect the stance of the nation. Isn't it double speak, would you say?
Actually, it's double speak as far as I'm concerned, because you cannot sign the peace accord. You know, this is not the first time. I think they signed one around November or December.
This is the second peace accord.
This is the second peace accord. So between the first and the second, your own members of a cabinet or members of the party are the one way or the other incited the people or the electorate against national interest. What Rufai actually said, as far as it's not for national interest, the president had to do something to protect the interest of his own people. So you're now coming out to say, oh, we have signed a peace accord with other political parties, so that signing peace accord is a different thing. Warning your members, the members of your political parties and the electorate, is another thing.
Do you expect anything new talking about national interest and security? Because there was some time last year where the president said that, well, national interest supersedes the rule of law, or national security supersedes the rule of law. So do you think we'll see any sharp practices going on this time around, and it will be labeled, well, it is under national security or national interest?
Actually, if I'm to go into the legal aspect, sometimes the national security...
The rule of law takes precedence at all times.
The rule of law, but sometimes, you know, what I notice is that whenever the president or whosoever has the power, even the judge sometimes, they put aside the rule of law for a particular, it's not all cases. It's not in all cases. You get my point. Sometimes they put aside rule of law, but just for the interest of the nation to supersede. It's not in all cases, like I said. But the truth is, in cases like this, the national interest is far, far, far more important than the, the security. Are you getting my point now? It's far, far, far more important than the security. I'm talking of the rule of law. The rule of law is national interest. You get, if you are talking of the rule of law, you are talking of the national, because that is where the interest of the nation. The rule of law
states that everybody is equal before the law and the justice must have its rule.
Exactly. That's exactly. The rule of law is the interest of the nation.
Well, we have to have a strong, definitive stance on that.
Of course, from what we know, there are clear-cut lines in that. And, of course, we do not have a legal practitioner here to actually delineate. But from what I know, we, of course, have clear-cut lines between the rule of law and national interest, of course, and talking about the security of the nation and ensuring that we don't have foreign actors infiltrating and causing havoc that, like we're seeing in Nigeria now. Now, let's talk about the safety of observers, foreign observers. Already we know that in Abuja, civil society organizations have set up an election monitoring room to observe the election, and they've been held by the UK government. And there's also a statement by the UK government saying that politicians who engage in violence during the election are going to have their assets in the UK freezed and all of that, and possibly prosecuted. Now, the president has said that foreign observers will be protected. What does that say about the stance of the present administration to ensure peace during the election? Because we know that foreign observers are not backing down. We have them in the country as we speak now, and they are saying that they will observe the election and that they want to see it done free, fair, and transparent.
I think, first of all, let me just cut in for what you said. I think the rule of law is sacrosanct, and it's above national interest.
That's true.
You don't mix the two of them up, right? Because if someone barges into this place, I say because of national security, that we're all guilty, well, we've not been proven. When a competent court of jurisdiction has not found us guilty and shoot everybody, that's wrong. That's not the rule of law. So the rule of law is paramount. Then, to answer your question, I find it difficult to accept what the APC administration is doing, right? Because a governor, for example, in Kaduna State, foreign observers will be in Kaduna State. I'm from Anambra State. The last election in Anambra State that brought in Governor Willie Obiano, I was home. I had to go and vote. All right. So and you have foreign observers, people that are not primarily from Anambra State. You have Europeans, you have Americans going around the different villages in Anambra State. So what is going to happen to some of them when they come to Kaduna State? Because from what we're seeing, we're receiving two different signals from Kaduna State and from the Federal Capital Territory. That's from Aso Rock. So is the president going to tell us that he's going to bring Governor El-Rufai, Rotimi Amechi? Because what is happening is that if, for example, foreign observers go into Rivers State is a volatile state. There's been a lot of militancy, piracy around that region. So if these guys go down into the creek, will they be safe? So it's not about Abuja or some selected places in Lagos like Victoria. Let's say that